Moving on, we now look at some of the cleverer facilities. Opening the standby database read-only. This has in fact been possible since the automation of redo transport and redo apply was first introduced in release 8i. Redo is received, it's still received on the standby database, but is not applied. So the redo is written to the RFS, saved to standby logs, archived to standby logs into archive logs, but there's no apply done. So recoverability is not compromised. There's still no danger of any loss of data. You're still receiving anything. But the thing is open read only. Now, what does that mean? It means you can run queries against it. You can offload all your heavyweight queries from the primary to the standby. When I say all of them, even queries that require vast amounts of temporary space, those horrendous queries that are doing hash joins between multi-gigabyte tables, they'll be generating many gigabytes of temporary data. You can write temporary data. So provided that you're using proper temporary table spaces, which you certainly all should be, you can run any query, no matter how big, no matter how much temporary data it needs. You can also write audit data, and this is important because with version 11, there's quite a lot of auditing enabled by default, and by default that auditing goes to the database, writing to database tables, and you can't write to a database table in a read-only database. But that we can configure for automatic switching and directing the audit records to the operating system audit trail instead. Now, the queries you run, why is this such a good facility? Well, first you're taking stress off the primary. I'm sure that, well, we're all DBAs here, and we all know how difficult it is to tune a database for a concurrent workload that includes both DML, high-volume DML, and includes heavyweight queries. Basically, you can't tune them that way at all. Offloading the queries to the physical standby will reduce a lot of stress from the primary, so your DML should run significantly better. And you can even do a certain amount of tuning on the standby to tune for optimal query performance. The most obvious tuning one would do would be with the memory parameters. One could, for example, give the primary a massive PGA aggregate target and a much smaller SGA target, or use, indeed, automatic memory management and have self-tuning. One can adjust many parameters to do with tuning the optimizer, to drive the optimizer towards certain execution plans, to exploit the environment. All that can be done on an open read-only database. How does one do it? Well, it couldn't be simpler. If we look at my physical standby here, so this thing, database role physical standby, and if we select the open mode from the $database, we find it's in mount mode. So how do we actually open it read-only? Well, first off, we have to stop the recovery process, because remember, redo is received but not applied. You have to cancel the recovery. So alter database, recover, managed, standby, database, cancel. And that will give us a read-consistent version of the database. The command is intelligent enough to know that there might be incomplete transactions, long-running transactions that have been partially received. We will end up with a read-consistent version. Having cancelled it, all we do is alter database, open, read only. Then we correct the spelling mistakes. And it is that simple. And now, on my primary, select star from Scott.dept, and I can now run all my heavyweight queries over here. But of course, it is read-only. If I insert into Scott.dept values 99, a new department, and it can be for the UK, and then I commit it, well, ooh, I've already got a 99. Oh, I know, that's probably because I have an uncommitted transaction kicking around. That's better. Commit, and that is not going to appear over here, of course, because we are not applying the redo at all. Yes, we already have my non-committed insert. Now, we can see what's going on, by the way. If we look at the query, we can see we are still receiving redo. The redo is coming across in pretty much real time. From my primary, I am transmitting block 55303. I've already applied it. Sorry, I've already received it. So we're receiving all the redo in very nearly real time, but we're not applying it at all. So what I will need to do eventually is alter database close and then re-enable the managed recovery. But there's no reason with the standard command, and right now I'll be launching my recovery process and it will be applying all the redo that has been received. Yep. It's already caught up. And many sites, we can set this up on many sites so that maybe you would open your database read-only first thing in the morning and then for all day redirect your queries to this thing. After night, close it, apply the redo, and it can catch up. But it gets better, because we have the ability to open the database read-only. Now, read-only with apply. What I've just demonstrated is a wonderful technique for improving performance. You offload all your heavyweight queries to the standby without compromising recoverability. I'm going to repeat that, without compromising recoverability. And the ability to tune the standby to running queries optimally helps a lot. But of course your queries are only as up-to-date as of the time the database was open. If you want a real-time data warehouse, then you need this. And the real-time data warehouse facility, open read-only with apply, really does now mean that we can start saving money. Because previously you would need to license 2 machines. You need to have one machine, perhaps open one machine which you would use as a physical standby applying redo in mount mode, and that would give you your fault tolerance. A second machine you would have to license and use as a logical standby, which you could open as a real-time data warehouse. By using the open read-only with apply option, the one licensed machine can fulfill both functions. It can run real-time queries and give you a zero data loss, well, not a zero data loss, a real, it can function for zero data loss without requiring a separate machine. So real-time queries and zero data loss in the one box. Now, one thing I should emphasize at this point, by the way, in these webinars, we try not to cover features that cost money, other than, of course, the cost of paying us to assist you with implementing them. But this feature is an exception. This is Active Data Guard. Active Data Guard is licensed on top of Enterprise Edition. I justify it by saying that it really is an option that saves you money because of the ability to reduce your license footprint. You will find with Active Data Guard you don't need to license as many machines, because the one machine is both your data warehouse site and your disaster recovery site. Because your standby database is a real-time DSS system. Now, the way it works from my physical standby, so my physical standby is now closed. Let's look at it in terms of the view. It is now a mounted database. So we can't run any queries at all at this point. If for some reason I tried to, of course, database not open. So what do? Well, we begin by cancelling the managed recovery once again. We open the database. Alter database open. Run my queries. Fine. And you can see the changes have come across already. But now we start recovery. Alter database recover managed standby database using current log file disconnect from session. And this will have launched a recovery process. And I'm now legally required to have licensed, of course, the Active Data Guard option. And we can now see I'm applying log files at this precise moment. And if we do some DML or run a query, so I'm running queries then against a database that is indeed applying redo at this precise moment. So if I were to delete from scott.dept where depsno equals 98, well, of course, I cannot run that query, that statement here. But I can run it on the primary, no problem, and commit. And in very nearly real time, the row's already gone. The data's coming across. So I'm getting real-time information for my queries. And it gets better. If you look at the last couple of points I have here, there's a configurable lag time. If for some reason the apply of redo does slip behind, which can happen in a data guard environment, if you have a huge burst of activity on the primary, it may well be that the apply service does get a few seconds behind. You can configure lag times. You can configure lag times quite straightforwardly with a command such as this. Oops, which I do need to run on the can't do it for sys, but if I connect to Scott, we can configure a lag time here of 10 seconds. What this means is that if I run any queries, before running the query, my server process will check, is the standby really up to date? And if the standby is more than 10 seconds behind, I'll get an appropriate error message. There's also another command we can run to force a synchronization with the primary. Normally, we would set up this sort of thing for you with logon triggers so that we can guarantee that certain tools you might be running will always give data that's accurate to within, say, 3 seconds, or indeed force a real-time synchronization so the query will actually hang until the data is up to date.
Fantastic. John, hold on a moment if you would. I would like to do two things and pass you a few questions. Okay. What's the impact on database performance with regard to
on the primary? On the primary, there should be no no performance impact whatsoever, because all the primary is doing is generating redo. There is, of course, an extra process or two to data guard, which is the log writer network slave process, but that's just one process. There should be no issue with that at all.
Great. I'm sorry, were you finished that one, John?
Yes.
Good. I just want to interrupt just for a moment. This is a little bit about John. So if you go to SkillBuilders.com and click on John's picture, you will get to this page. I just want to show you a little bit more about John's experience and credentials. I mentioned he authored several books. You can see the thumbnails of those books here, which would take you to Amazon or something if you wanted to buy those books if you don't already have them. But you can see John has just got an incredible breadth of certifications, including Certified Specialist in Implementation of Exadata and Certified Master Oracle Database 11G Administrator. Hey, John, what I took a stab at, there was a question that came in and I took a stab at the answer. What is the release of the database that you are operating on?
Right, I am operating right now on release 11.203. Most of the facilities, let's see, Open Read Only dates back to 8i. Open Read Only with Apply is most definitely 11G, but is any release of 11G. So from 11.1 onwards, we can do everything we've looked at so far.
Good. You might have mentioned logical standby somewhere along the way, and there was just a quick question on that. Can we export data from a logical standby database?
A logical standby? You certainly can. A logical standby, which I hadn't intended to talk about today, but a logical standby is an absolutely normal database. It just happens to be receiving a stream of changes through the SQL apply mechanism. So no problem with that at all. Yep, so no issue with that.
Great. I think you might attack this a little later, but I'll put it in the queue now in your thought train. Can the standby database be used as a load balancer? And if so, what are the factors that we need to consider before setup?
What you need to consider there is what work can effectively be executed against the standby. Because the standby database is, as we've seen at the moment, is of course read-only. But almost let me just check where I am on my slides, because yes, in about 3 slides time, well, we'll begin to look at, we'll see how you can intelligently direct some traffic that does DML to a standby. And that would allow you, in effect, to use it as a load balancing mechanism. Direct some applications based on services, develop, balance some applications to the primary, and direct some other applications to the standby. So we will return to that later on. And thank you for raising that question. I'll make sure I talk about it in 2 slides' time.